Have you ever lived somewhere that felt alive, but not with the living? Where every creak, every shadow, and every flicker of light seemed to carry a presence watching you? This is the story of my year living in a haunted dorm in Texas, a building that used to be an orphanage, a place where the past never truly left. What I experienced there still haunts me, and tonight I'm sharing every detail. I moved in one summer, taking over as an RA for the dorm. It was an old building full of peeling paint, narrow hallways, faded carpets, and rooms that smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals mixed with dust. The history fascinated me. The orphanage had housed children who lost their parents tragically. Some rumors spoke of unexplained deaths, mysterious disappearances, and children who vanished without a trace. At first, I thought it was all legend, just stories passed down to scare new residents. But within the first week, I realized something was very wrong. My first night, I barely had time to unpack. I set up my bed and tried to make the room feel like home. That night, I had a dream, or maybe it wasn't a dream. A boy, around 10 or 12, ran through both my front and bedroom doors and jumped onto my bed as if to say hello. In the doorway stood a man, tall and silent, arms crossed, watching. I couldn't make out his features, only a dark silhouette. The next morning, both my doors were wide open. I thought maybe I hadn't closed them properly, but it happened again the next morning. That's when I started to feel the dorm wasn't ordinary. Weeks later, I learned about the spirits haunting the building. A playful boy, a calm and soothing nun, and a malevolent, shadowy figure. I didn't know this at the time, but the feelings of unease were the first sign that I wasn't alone. One night I woke suddenly, like someone had clapped loudly next to my ears. My eyes snapped open, and at the foot of my bed, I saw it, a tall, black shadow blocking part of my door and the sink beside it. The streetlight outside gave the room a faint yellow glow, making the blackness of the figure seem impossibly deep. The feeling radiating from it wasn't just fear, it was hate, pure, concentrated hatred directed at me. I couldn't move. To get out, I'd have to run straight past it. I did the only thing I could, hid under my blankets and whispered the Lord's Prayer over and over until I fell asleep. Weeks later, I saw it again. This time, the shadow formed in front of me, starting as a swirling black orb that slowly extended into the full figure, taller than me, radiating the same intense malice. I hid under my blankets and prayed until I drifted off. I became convinced this was the evil spirit haunting the dorm. But there were other moments too. The little boy appeared often, tugging on my blankets as if to play, almost comforting but always eerie. The nun would manifest as a glowing figure in the hallway, offering a sense of calm I couldn't explain. These spirits were gentle and protective, but the dark figure was the opposite, exuding energy that made my blood run cold. During my daily routine as an RA, subtle paranormal events became routine. Doors creaked open and shut for no reason. Shadows seemed to move across walls when no one was there. I heard faint whispers as I walked the hallways, sometimes soft laughter, sometimes prayers. On one night, I was walking to the lounge to do paperwork, and the floorboards behind me creaked like someone was following. I turned quickly and the hallway was empty. The hair on my arm stood up. On another night, I lay in bed and felt a cold hand brush my shoulder. My heart pounded, and it lasted for minutes, leaving a chill I couldn't shake. I tried to rationalize these experiences. Maybe it was the building settling, the old floors shifting, or my imagination. But over time, the incidents became too frequent, too consistent, and too distinctly intentional. One day, my boss asked me to catalog unoccupied rooms on the first floor. I went with another RA, room by room. We checked everything. Beneath my room was a laundry area with a hallway twisting like an S, lined with storage closets from floor to ceiling. The deeper we went, the heavier the air felt, like walking underwater. Every step made my chest tight, my skin crawl. We both sensed something at the end of the hallway, something that didn't want to be seen. Without a word, we turned around and left. Only one room remained. I opened the door and was hit with darkness so complete it felt alive. Shapes of objects were barely visible, but the room radiated a palpable evil. Every instinct screamed, "Don't enter." I couldn't reach for the light switch. I knew if I turned it on, I'd see something I was never meant to see. I slammed the door and fled, my heart pounding. Even the dorm's ordinary nights were uncomfortable. Shadows moved across walls, doors creaked open, footsteps echoed where no one was walking, and faint giggling or whispers filled the air. One night I heard footsteps outside my room. When I looked, it was empty. On another night, I felt a cold presence in the corner of my room while I tried to sleep. I started keeping a small journal, documenting every sound, movement, and shadow. One night I heard a whisper behind me while working late in the lounge. I turned and the room was empty, but a chair was slightly turned, facing me. Another night, a shadow passed over my wall faster than any person could. I began to dread being alone. The more I stayed, the more I felt the building's past pressing down on me. I imagined the children who had lived here, their laughter, their cries, their ghosts lingering in corners and hallways. I felt their energy, sometimes playful, sometimes restless, realizing the dorm was a convergence point where the living and the dead brushed shoulders every day. Some nights were worse than others. I remember one night vividly. I was lying in bed. The little boy appeared at my doorway, smiling before vanishing. The nun glided silently down the hall, her presence warm and protective. And in the far corner, the dark figure lurked. It didn't move toward me. It just waited, patient and full of hate. I lay there frozen, watching it, feeling a fear unlike anything I had known. My heart pounded, my hands trembled, and every nerve in my body screamed to leave, but I couldn't. I watched the shadow dissolve slowly into the walls, leaving a lingering sense of malice. The experiences didn't stop. At times, the shadows seemed to appear in reflections, in windows, in mirrors. At other times, I would wake to find my room colder than it should be. Objects slightly moved. The little boy would sometimes tug at my blankets or giggle softly, playful but unsettling. The nun would leave a comforting presence in the hall, almost like she was guiding me. But the dark figure remained constant, always present in some form, a reminder that not all spirits were benign. As the year went on, the psychological effects became more pronounced. I slept less and less, constantly on edge, noticing every flicker of light, every creak in the hallways. I imagined the children who had lived here, the tragedies they had endured, and the spirits that lingered. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, noticing even the slightest shadow movement. I began documenting everything, hoping that recording it would somehow make it less real, but it only made me more aware of how alive the building felt. On my final night in the dorm, I stayed awake late, sitting in darkness, reflecting on everything I had experienced. The little boy appeared one last time, smiling faintly before vanishing. The nun glided by, her presence protective and warm. In the far corner, the dark shadow lingered. I didn't scream or pray. I just watched, and for the first time, it didn't move toward me. It seemed almost satisfied. I left the building the next morning, feeling the weight of all the spirits lift slightly, but the memories remained. Even now, years later, I wonder about the shadow. Did it remain in the dorm or did it follow me? And if it followed me, is it still waiting in the corners of my life, patient, watching, full of hate? This dorm was not just haunted, it was alive with history, tragedy, and the spirits that refused to rest. It was a place where the boundary between the living and the dead blurred. A place where fear could take physical form and where the past could reach out and touch the present. If you ever find yourself in a building with a long history, listen to your instincts. Sometimes the stories are real, and sometimes the shadows are waiting.